growth is a weird thing because it's one of those things where you get deeper into it and the harder it gets.
It hurts to let go of old friends. It hurts to let go of old relationships, even when they're toxic.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another very special, as always, Next Level University live podcast. It is week number 69, dealing with the growing pains of change. So if you are on a journey, as Alan mentioned in the pre-frame, that is going to require you to change in some way, shape, or form. And oftentimes, think of it this way, with growth comes conflict, and conflict is usually painful.
Oh, yeah. All right, so the very first thing we want to talk about here is that achieving goals are great, but they also come with pain. So I remember when I was first starting out to be a coach, I first aspired to be a coach. I had a goal to reach 10 clients.
What year did you start coaching?
Ooh.
How many years have you been coaching?
Tail end of 2018. Probably mid-2018. I started off in fitness now, and then I leaned into business, and now I'm a business coach and consultant. But I remember when I first started coaching, I aspired to get 10 clients, and it was weekly clients, so 10 weekly clients. And that's a great goal, but I remember as I got closer and closer and closer towards that goal, I started to realize the uncomfortable truth that this is really, really hard. And so like I said, achieving goals is great, but we don't always realize what those goals will require of us. So having 10 clients as a new coach, if you're an aspiring coach out there, having 10 clients and achieving your goal is great, but I don't think I understood the growing pains that would come with that. Having 10 full-time clients weekly, that's 10 calls a week, and you have the success of other people's lives in your hands in many regards. And so again, this is dealing with the growing pains of change. Going from no coaching to 1 client to 2 clients to 4 clients to 8 clients to 10 clients, it's a growth journey that really gets harder and harder and harder. And I often talk about this on the podcast. Being successful in many regards is actually harder. And one simple analogy I can use for this is like, if it was your lifelong dream to play in the NFL, once you get to the NFL, your life doesn't actually get easier. I mean, financially it probably does. But playing in the NFL is harder than playing in college. And so that's something important to remember, is that when you grow, now you actually have to play at that higher level, which can come with growing pains.
What was your focus when you realized this is way more difficult than I thought? Because I remember that time specifically.
Get better.
Yeah.
It was get better. How do I be more effective in less time? How do I manage the rest of my life to where I can handle 10 clients? Not just handle them, but like be more and more effective. Because I didn't want to just be a decent coach. I wanted to be an exceptional coach. And I noticed that the quality of my coaching was starting to degrade. And so I didn't want that. So what I did is I eliminated some of the inessentials in other parts of my life so that I could fit. And now I have well beyond 10 clients, which is great.
Now you're able to handle it.
Exactly.
So what I'm going to talk about is near and dear to my heart, an understanding that I want to save you guys some time and hopefully some pain. An understanding that external results will not fix your internal dialogue. So I have told my story many times on our podcast, many times on other podcasts, on other platforms, where after my girlfriend left me in 2017, one of my focuses was self-improvement. I wanted to get better. So I was saying positive affirmations. I was reading for the first time in my life, which was an interesting thing. One of the things that I really leaned into, though, was making more money. I was convinced that I would be happier if I made more money. And that year, so the next year, I got promoted to a foreman for the company I was working for. I was traveling up and down the East Coast of the United States. And at the end of the year, I was on the road for 10 out of those 12 months. And I'll never forget, I was sitting at my kitchen table, dining room table, kind of like this, and I opened my last pay stub. And I said, did I make $100,000? That was my goal, to make $100,000 at 26 with no college degree, faster than any of my friends. Alan and I weren't friends at the time, but he beat me. And I did. I made $100,000, but I realized that nothing changed. I had a very similar conversation with somebody in Colorado last week where she said, I really need to raise my prices, but I'm not sure that I'm confident enough to do that yet. And I said, honestly, I mean this with all the love in the world. You're not ready to raise your prices yet because you don't understand your own value. You think that raising your prices will bring you a bunch of clients that will fix this void inside of yourself, when actually you have to flip that. So the growing pain of figuring out, look, getting the money, getting the client, getting the car, getting the home, that's not going to fix this internal problem. I just jeffed myself. It starts with you fixing it first. And that's what I had to do when we really went hard into business and trying to make money as a podcast, is I had to heal a bunch of my own stuff before I was able to get those results. And honestly, I'm still guilty from time to time of saying like, one more client and this will go away, one more client and this will go away. It's a constant process, but I want to try to save you guys as much pain as possible. Understand that it's kind of flipped. You think getting a certain thing will make you feel a certain way. You have to feel that way long before you have it, and you'll probably attract it quicker.
So I want to ask Kev a question on this.
No.
What do you think? Okay. What do you think was a little bit, off about the advice of just raising your prices? Because I think from my perspective, just suddenly raising your prices and then going out and getting a higher ticket client, if you don't have self-confidence and self-belief, you're going to get rejected more at a higher price point, most likely. And that might affect your self-esteem, and then you might quit coaching altogether. Is that an accurate representation?
I think that it's all well and good to raise your prices because everybody wants to make more money. But if you don't believe in your product or service enough to do it, or you don't have let's put it this way. We start charging $25,000 an hour, we're going to attract a different level of person who we might not be ready for.
Right.
The more money you charge, typically the higher caliber person you're going to attract because they're the ones who can afford it.
Well, what they're expecting too.
Exactly.
Also.
They're going to see through it. Like
Right.
if you have any fear, they're going to see through it and they're going to say, why did I pay for this? And you're going to get rejected way more, for sure.
Right.
We've gotten rejected how many times in this journey?
Oh,
right?
Hundreds, if not thousands.
But real quick, I do believe there's an in between. I feel like some people drastically undercharge, some people drastically overcharge. I think it's finding the right place for you in accordance to the level of belief that you have in your product or service.
And one thing I'll add too, because this is dealing with the growing pains of change. If you are going to change your prices, it can be really painful. Not only for you, but for your existing clients too, because it's like, oh, well, I was getting this service for this amount, and it's like, well, I can't do that anymore because supply and demand. When my calendar's fully booked, I have to charge more because my time, I don't have any extra time in my calendar, so that's an important piece as well. Cool. The more you grow, the less relatable you come. This is one that's near and dear to my heart. So when we were in Colorado, Kevin and I, as you know, are into fitness, and we're actually more into fitness now than we have been in a long time because after COVID, we didn't take time off per se, but we weren't as focused on fitness. We were more focused on business, and now we're both really ramping that up, which I feel amazing about.
As well, 12 pounds in 12 weeks is my goal. So Alan said I wouldn't do it, so I wanted to say it here publicly.
Hell yeah.
He actually said BS when I said I was going to do it. I don't know what that's all about.
That was just to take you behind the scenes. That was to challenge him so that he would do it because Kevin responds really well to challenge. So that's a little coaching tip. Depending on who you are, you got to challenge or you got to support. So Kevin's someone you need to challenge. Okay. So what was I saying? Oh, yeah. So when we were in Colorado, there was a lot of people that were going out and networking and having dinner in the evenings. Kevin and I had a really hard time doing that. We wanted to spend time with everybody in Colorado, but what we really wanted to do more was the gym. And so we went and worked out alone while everyone else was at dinner. And it's hard to see those photos come through Facebook where it's like we missed out. We missed out on those dinners. And that does hurt, but we also got a great workout in. And the next time that we look in our own mirror, we're going to be proud of ourselves for taking fitness more seriously. And so remember, dealing with the growing pains of change makes you less relatable. The more you grow, you will be less statistically relatable because the more extraordinary you become, extraordinary. Remember, it's a bell curve. If average is here and you're getting farther and farther and farther away from average, then of course you're going to be a little bit less relatable. So for example, if Tom Brady's talking about what it's like to win 7 Super Bowls, who else can he talk about that with? Probably 2 or 3 other people on the planet. Again, I use Tom Brady as an example because it's an extreme example, but that goes for all of us. If you read 52 books a year and you're constantly talking about all the books you're reading, like how many other people are reading personal development books at that rate? It's very few. The truth of the matter is it's very few. So you're going to be less relatable. Whereas if you watch Game of Thrones, great show, everybody can talk about that because everybody watches it, right? So that's just another thing about growing pains.
And I wanted to add to that, the only people who really, truly understand what you're doing are the people who are doing what you're doing, like Alan just mentioned. So recently, and again, we've talked about the Colorado trip a lot, but the Colorado trip is the first time we've traveled since COVID, so it's actually quite important and powerful for us to be back on the road again. But this is a running theme for me. Alan and I get an opportunity to travel every time Taryn and I are supposed to go on vacation. And when I told Taryn about this trip, she was a little bit frustrated because I didn't communicate it well. But she said, Kevin, you have to do this. Like, obviously, this is a huge thing for you. She understands the level of growth that I need to continue having requires me to be in the room with people that are way ahead of me. Another thing about this, and this is a good story. I remember back in the day, there were certain people that were more successful than us. And I always used to say, Alan, I don't know why this person isn't texting us back. Like, how hard is it to text somebody back? Now, Alan and I don't get back to messages as quickly as we should, for sure. My buddy Matt and I, we will literally have a message hanging out for a week because he's doing his thing, I'm doing my thing. We understand that, look, I know what he's doing. He knows what I'm doing. He understands that I'm not glued to my phone to text people back right away. I have clients that I want to get back to, Taryn, Alan, the team, and I could do better at all those. But it's an understanding that you're growing at this rate. That's why you can't get back to me. And the last point I wanted to make on this, I'll never forget when we were doing Your World Within Live down in Florida, Hollywood Beach, Florida. We had some members of the team there, and Amy can probably remember this. I think it was the last day. Amy and I went for a walk at the end, and she said, I'm so excited that now I got to see you, and this means I'm going to get to see like way more of you, right? And I said, Amy, I mean this with all the love in the world. For us to keep growing, you're probably actually going to see less of me. Like, you'll see more of me virtually probably, but I'm not going to have a ton of time to like hang out and meet up. And Amy took that so incredibly well because I think she understood what Alan and I were really trying to do, especially after that event of seeing like, look, Evan Carmichael, Eddie Pinero, us on stage, which was amazing, in this beautiful hotel. Understand that the people who understand what you're doing are probably doing something similar. And the people who don't understand, it makes it difficult. And that's one of the hardest growing pains is losing people, creating conflict, creating contrast between people. That's one of the hardest things about growth.
Well, because when you're striving for something great, you have to have really high standards, and you don't tend to have a lot of time. So imagine you want to be healthy, wealthy, and in love. So imagine you want to be healthy physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually, the most healthy version of yourself. Okay, so physical. So you got to go to the gym. You probably want to do mobility. You probably want to get 8 hours of sleep. You probably want to hydrate. You probably want to exercise every day. Okay, so that's just physical health. Okay, mental health. You probably want to read books. You probably want to listen to podcasts like this. Emotional. So you probably want to have a good intimate relationship and a good relationship with yourself. And then spiritual, you also want to have some sort of relationship with your spiritual self or your God or your spirit. And so even just health, being exceptional in that one area, requires a ton of investment, so much investment every single day. And that's not even including wealth. Okay, let's go through wealth. So let's say you want to love what you do and master your craft. Okay, that's number one. Let's say you want to make more money. That takes time. Prospecting, working on your craft, making sure you're sending those emails, getting back to clients, things like that. Then you want to also invest. You want to invest your money well. So now you got to pay attention to your finances, your business, your home, stock market maybe. Okay, so that's health and wealth. Now, okay, love. Now you've got your intimate relationship. You've got your immediate family. You've got your extended family. You've got your business partner. You've got your team if you run a business. Then you've also got your clients and your customers. Now you have friends too. What about your mentees and mentors? See, you can see how life fills up very quickly. You want to talk about growing pains? Being exceptional in all of those areas, in whatever way is exceptional to you, is ridiculously difficult. And what I mean by that is it's going to be painful at times when you realize that you can't be there for everybody all the time. Steve Jobs used to say this all the time. You cannot please everyone all the time. And trying to do that is absolutely going to spread you too thin. And then you'll do a bunch of things mediocre rather than a few things with excellence, which I don't believe we're wired for. So the next point I wanted to make
Can I ask you a question real quick?
Always, brother.
I think this is an important... I don't know if I've ever asked you this live or in front of anybody. Simple question.
Mm-hmm.
Answer truthfully.
Okay.
No lies.
Okay.
In the NLU studio.
Yeah.
Would you and I be friends if we weren't on this journey together?
We would be friends, but we wouldn't see each other or spend time together.
I think that's important. I think that's an important distinction of people see us. We just did an episode that's launching Friday, maybe, on the, what is it? The Shining, I don't remember what we called it.
Oh, yeah.
Shiny
glamour.
object syndrome?
Yeah. Do you have shiny object syndrome?
People might see Alan and I's friendship and be like, oh my goodness, I wish I could find a friend like that, or a relationship like that, or a business partnership like that. Understand that it's based on the goal. Like, we wouldn't be spending this much time together if it wasn't for the growth that is required for us to accomplish the goal.
Right.
I think it's just an important distinction of that's what our friendship is based on. Our friendship is based on growth. That's why we're able to stay so close.
Literally. And it's based on the mission. I want to unpack that a little bit. I appreciate you asking that.
Yes.
So I actually figured out, what the best use of my time is based on my unique gifting. I believe we all have a specific gift. For me, I believe that coaching specifically is absolutely a gift. And coaching the team in particular is, I think, the best use of my time to maximize my own growth and contribution in this world. But in my opinion, the most currently well-developed team member, physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually, is Kevin. And so, believe it or not, me spending time with Kevin is actually, in many ways, the 10 out of 10 most aligned, other than time with Emilia and my relationship. And so, again, at the end of the day, what it comes down to, and this is dealing with the growing pains of change, if you want to grow to your maximum potential, physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually, you're going to have to choose 10 out of 10s. You're not going to be able to live. If you choose 2 out of 10 of alignment, you're going to live a level 2 life. And what do I mean by that? So, let's say you want to make $200,000 this year, okay? Based on that goal, spending time with someone who has mastered money and career success is more aligned than someone who has not. And so again, it's not a matter of whether or not I love Kevin. Of course I love Kevin. Kevin is a more aligned use and investment of time, which is the only asset we have: time, energy, and money. Time is the most important of those. And so if Kevin and I are trying to bring personal development to the masses and having the most successful self-improvement podcast in history, of course we're going to have to choose the 10s out of 10 in terms of our time. And so again, I just want to make sure we unpack the layers of that so that people understand that being discerning is critical. Every single person out there listening right now, if you became more discerning with who you spent your time with, your life would improve by a drastic margin. And I don't mean based on who you love or care about more. What I mean is who has more congruent aspirations, core values, and core beliefs. If you spend a ton of time with people who are not into fitness, when you're trying to reach your fitness goals, it will be more difficult for you to reach your fitness goals. I was reading a book right now on my way to the studio today called The Molecule of More. And it said that if you have an overweight, there was a study that was done. If you have a friend who became overweight, obese in this case, and this is the book, not me, you are 57% more likely to become overweight yourself if you stay friends with that person. I'm not saying to stop being friends with people who are overweight. That is not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is you have to understand that who you spend time with has more influence over you and your success and your habits and your thoughts and your feelings than anything else in this world. Kevin and I are almost about to reach 700 episodes, interviewing hundreds of people, traveling all over this country, mentors, clients, team members, you name it. The one thing that never leaves is this next point that I'm about to make, which is that you are the sum average of the 5 people you spend the most time with.
What's going on, everybody? My name is Branden Lowe. I am the host of the Decide and Design podcast, and I'm also part of the NLU team. I wanted to give a shout out to Kevin and Alan real quick. So when I first started working for Kevin and Alan, they asked me, what kind of skills do you have? What can you bring to the table? And I was honest and transparent with them. I was like, I don't have a lot of computer skills. I don't have a lot of sales skills or business skills, but I'm willing to work hard. And they decided to take a chance on me and give me a huge opportunity based off of my character. And when they did that, that really showed me what types of people that Kevin and Alan are. I mean, amazing guys who really have been mentoring me, coaching me, and taking me under their wing and completely changing my life. I now host a podcast. I'm on the team, I'm connecting with amazing people, and I'm becoming the man that I was truly meant to be, and it's because of these two amazing guys. I have nothing but amazing things to say about them. I love you guys. Thank you so much for giving me this opportunity, and if you have the chance to work with Kevin and Alan, I highly, highly recommend it.
If you want to be in better shape, you must get around better people into fitness. If you want to be wealthier, you must get around people who are wealthier. There is no exception to this rule. I didn't make the rules. I'm just the one who's right now talking about it. So the next point that I wanted to make, again, this is dealing with the growing pains of change. It hurts to let go of old friends. It hurts to let go of old relationships, even when they're toxic. Every single person in your life is either feeding you who you aspire to be so that you grow. It's either nutritious or it's toxic. Okay? If you do have a toxic relationship, I had this one client who her family just did not support her at all. She has these huge aspirations. She has fitness goals. She's trying to get after it. She's trying to be a speaker. She's trying to do all these amazing things. And her family is constantly criticizing her when she already has self-doubt. She already struggles with her own self-doubt. The last thing she needs is the people she loves most to criticize. Luckily, she has some other people in her life, coaches and mentors, that say, you got this, you can do this, to balance out some of that. And so the point I'm making here, it does hurt to let go of old relationships, even when they're toxic. Toxic, I'm going to define it. Toxic means they are not pouring fertilizer into your growth. And you know, if you're listening to me right now, this is not sexy, this is not fun. You know if you have friends or family members who are toxic. You know it deep down. You can tell. Remember, there are some people who want you to succeed. There are some people who don't care whether you do or you don't. And then there are some people who subconsciously or consciously genuinely want to see you fail. And if someone wants to see you fail, they don't belong in your life. And only you can know that for you.
Growth is a weird thing because it's one of those things where you get deeper into it and the harder it gets. So when you start your journey of growth, most of the time it's you just learning new things. But as you get deeper into the journey, not only do you have to learn new things, you have to unlearn old things. It's basically like every time you learn something new, you suck. And then you get a little bit better and a little bit better and a little bit better. And then when you master that thing or get good enough at that thing, it's time to learn something else. Mm-hmm. So for us, say, when we started this, it was podcasting. All right, so my initial dive into growth was starting a podcast, the Hyper Conscious podcast. I don't know if you've heard it. It's pretty popular back in the day. But I had to learn about the equipment, right? I had to learn about the equipment. I had to learn about the programs. I had to learn about all that. Okay, cool. Once I figured that out, time to up-level. I had to figure out how to speak into a microphone. I had to figure out how to edit audio. I tell the story about the first teaser clip I created. It took 16 hours and my computer crashed and I had to get a new computer. That was a growing pain. Then it was brutal. Then, and there was many, many different things. We were literally recording with the iPhone through a USB thing into the mixer, and we were using FaceTime audio for a long time. COVID came, we had to learn about Zoom, and now we're on StreamYard. Now we're streaming to Facebook and all that happy jazz. There's always something. But for every one of those things I had to learn, I had to unlearn something. I had a client recently who she just came across 150,000 downloads on her podcast. And I was like, that's amazing. Like, you're absolutely crushing it. But now I want you to listen back to your episodes and like listen to your delivery, listen to your questions, listen to your tone, listen to your solo episodes. Something she has to unlearn is the fact that she doesn't like the way her voice sounds. Alan and I had to do the same thing.
Oh, yeah.
But she never would have gotten to that point if she didn't get 150,000 downloads in. So it doesn't get easier. The growing pains force you to get better. And for every one thing you have to learn, you're probably going to have to unlearn at least one thing. But it's beautiful and it's empowering and it gives you this opportunity to continue to level up, to get to know yourself at a deeper level and to get to know the real you. And I think that's the important part of growth.
What have you had to unlearn, brother?
Oh boy, I've had to unlearn the fact that I am not good enough is the battle I deal with every single day. Another thing, and I'm gonna be real authentic here. I had too many cups of coffee before this, straight up. Remember how I was like, yo, I shouldn't have this?
Yeah.
I've had to battle anxiety throughout this. Like today in this moment, I'm like super anxious. Yeah. I thought I was gonna have to duck out for a minute. We're gonna be fine though. What else?
Appreciate your honesty.
Yeah, of course.
Wow. I didn't even know.
Well, that's
anyone
good.
listening probably didn't even know.
They might have, because I was like, blah, 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 blah. Not feeling smart enough. That's been my jam. I've told this story many times where we're at Brant Pinvidic's house, his mansion, in the backyard, and he's cooking on his Benihana grill, and I'm like, what the hell am I even doing here? Like, what are you guys talking about, leveraged buyouts? I don't even know what that means. So those are just a few things I've had to deal with.
All right, so the next point that I want to make here, and again, I'm going to keep reiterating the title, Dealing with Growing Pains. Dealing with Growing Pains. Change is necessary to grow, but change is hard. Staying the same is super easy. You don't have to do anything. Stay where you are. You don't have to change anything. You just get to stay in your comfort zone completely. All right, so growth creates new awareness, and new awareness can be painful. So if you listen to this show, you've heard me talk about this, but when I turned 32, I reflected and reread the book of my life. I read chapter 1 and chapter 2 and chapter 3 all the way up to chapter 32. Because Bob Proctor has a really great quote. He says that when you read a book that you've already read before and you notice something you didn't notice before, it's not because the book changed. It's because you changed. So I have a really, really good memory, and I'm very blessed with a good memory. And so I could reread the book of my life. I have all these memories. I have all these memories of growing up. So many, in fact, that they still come to me often. We do something called ROMWAD, and it's very calming, and it's long-form stretching. Memories flood me.
Really?
Every single day I do it, yeah. And so I'm literally reprocessing my past from this higher sense of awareness. And one of the things I wanted to talk about was when we're little kids, we all have role models. Seriously. I remember I had teachers that I looked up to. I remember I had parents that I look up to. I had neighbors' parents that I looked up to. Different people. I had heroes, all this stuff. Kevin and I have been very blessed to meet some of our heroes. We've been very blessed to interview so many different people, to study and learn the behind the scenes of many people's lives. But the point I'm trying to make here is when we were kids, we are little kids. We don't really know any better. And so we look up to all these people. And now that I'm a grown man at 32 years old, I reread the book of my life and I realized like this new awareness brought me pain, sincere pain of like, oh, wow, like that person who I looked up to was actually an alcoholic. Wow, like 18 beers a day was not actually normal. And again, I'm not going to name any names. I'm going to keep all this anonymous. But like, it's like, oh, that person actually was doing drugs. It's like, oh, that person actually didn't really guide me. Maybe that person didn't have my best interest at heart, and I took their advice anyway. I have a lot of those. A lot of those. So here's what I'm saying. Reflect on your past from this new sense of awareness. Yes, it will be painful. But how do you create that brighter future if you don't reflect on the past and reinvest it into your future? You have so many lessons in your past, but if you don't reread the book, you're not going to remember the lessons. You're not going to be able to change in the future and change your future unless you learn from the past. Learn from the past, enjoy the present, build toward a brighter future. You can't build toward a brighter future if you keep avoiding the lessons of your past because you'll keep repeating the same mistakes. When I reread the book of my life at 32, there was a lot of stuff that I was like, wow, that was really bad. Like, honestly, that person's advice was not good. Honestly, that wasn't a good person. Or maybe they didn't have my best interest at heart, or maybe they had a problem, and I have compassion. Maybe they were an alcoholic. I struggled with alcohol too. I'm not saying I don't have empathy or compassion. What I'm saying is that I was making decisions on faulty assumptions. I was making decisions on low awareness of the truth. I don't care if you're 60, 70, 50. I don't care if you're 30. I don't even care if you're 20. If you're 20, I want you to reflect on your old friends, your old experiences, persons, places, things, and ideas, books you read, places you visited. And say to yourself, you know what? If I could go back, would I make that same choice? If I could go back, would I actually admire that person still? Do I admire that person still? Because remember what I told you, we are more influenced by other people than any other thing. Everyone out there right now has an influence. There's someone out there that influenced you so much. Was that a good thing? I'm sure in certain regards it was. But it also probably came with some blind spots. It probably came with some negatives too, because everyone has strengths and weaknesses. Remember, not everyone is reflecting on their past in order to build a brighter future. But if you want to grow, you're going to have to do that. And I promise you, when you reread the book of your life from a higher sense of awareness, there will be some painful stuff. Very last thing I'll say is this about this topic. I made a decision when I was 16 years old to go meet a girl who was 19, and I'm going to be completely transparent, I lost my virginity. In hindsight, that was not a good choice. Luckily, nothing bad happened, but I didn't even know her that well. Okay? I'm 32 now. Would I make that choice again? Of course not. I'm more aware. Okay? Learn from your mistakes by reflecting on them. And yes, it will be painful. Admitting the poor choices of your past is the very why power that you need, why power, why you do what you do, to build that brighter future. And that's super important.
I haven't told, speaking of dumb decisions, I haven't told this story. I don't know if you can see this on the camera. Oh, you can't really see it. I have like this big scar on my hands. And when I was senior year, I got very intoxicated on Sparks. I don't know if you remember those.
Yeah.
I was a fan. I don't know how they're illegal, but I hit myself in the hand with a knife for some reason, and then this knife was sharp, and I literally cut my whatever tendon this is 90% of the way through. I had to go to the hospital. I had to get stitches. They put tweezers in my hand. It was disgusting. But looking back on that, it's like, what in the hell were you doing? Like, what was that supposed to do? Mm-hmm. What was that supposed to serve? So a lot of times it will be painful when you look back, but I think the only mistakes we should avoid making are the same ones twice. Right. It's okay to make mistakes. It's proof that you're trying. It's proof that you're growing. So speaking of dealing with the growing pains of change, I believe one of the best ways to cope with and or avoid them is to remember why you started in the first place. Why did you start this journey?
When I was 26, you guys know this if you are long-term listeners. For those of you who are new, when I was 26, I got in a car accident. When I was 2 years old, my father passed away in a car accident when he was 28. And so when I was 26, that really messed with me a lot. The car was totaled. I show the car in my speeches. And after that, I was just so filled with regret. Because for me, I grew up my entire life hearing stories about my dad, and mortality was never a stranger to me. I didn't go into this world thinking that everything would just work out, because I saw that things don't always work out. I mean, my mom and my dad got together. I believe she was 30 and he was 28, or 26 when they got together. And I think she was 28, and then I think she was 30 when he passed away. But my mom was left with 2 children and no husband, and she had never been prepared for that, and she didn't have a lot of choices. And so the reason why the original question, why did I get so into this? Why did I decide to go all in on growth? I realized that not being into growth was what filled me with regret. I wasn't proud of the man that I had become because I had been on autopilot. And so that's really the thing here is like, yes, it's painful to grow, but at least you won't have regret. There's this great quote that I absolutely adore, which is like, you can have the discipline today to do what's hard and necessary that you know you should do, or you'll have the pain of regret tomorrow. You know, nobody wants to get lung cancer, but people still smoke cigarettes. Nobody wants to have a heart attack, but yet people still don't go to the gym, don't exercise, right? Nobody wants to get divorced, but yet people still give the cold shoulder to their spouse. And after my car accident, I was just like, no more regret. I'm going to reverse engineer regret. And I talk often about Bronnie Ware's book, The Top 5 Regrets of the Dying. And the number one regret was I wish I lived a life true to myself and not what others expected of me. That's what the terminally ill repeatedly said. She worked in hospice with the terminally ill, and they all said, I wish I had lived a life true to myself and not what others expected of me. So
I had a moment recently. So we are in Worcester. Our studio is in Worcester, and I was leaving the studio after a long marathon Monday, probably like, I don't know, whatever it was, 15, 16-hour day. And I saw the company that I used to work for. I saw one of their vans driving, and I was literally thinking to myself, my why I started this, I was sitting on the edge of a hotel bed suicidal. Like, wanted to kill myself because if I thought if I took my life, I took my problems with me. And every time I see a van that I used to work for that company, it reminds me of like right now it's 6:36 Eastern Standard Time. Alan and I are in the studio doing what we love. 5 years ago, I would be crawling through an attic right now in 100-degree weather or doing whatever, and I'd be very, very miserable. And that is why I started this, so I could help other people avoid the things that I went through. I remember episode number 7, go back and listen, Hyperconscious Podcast. I literally decided that I wanted this to be my life, and now it is. And I think it's something that I can definitely take for granted, and it's important not to. But when things get rough, remember why you started. And remember this is the question. Would I go back if I could? I wouldn't. I wouldn't. I'd rather do this forever and be broke than go back and be rich. That's not what I'm playing for. So, little bonus, last one. We talked a lot about the negative, quote unquote, negative sides of growth, the growing pains associated with change. There's also positives. So I don't know if you're watching this, if you're listening to the repurpose, if you've had an identity crisis. Alan and I have those, what seems like weekly or bi-weekly. So while we were in Colorado, Alan and I got back to the hotel, and we were sitting in the car. They gave us a Mercedes, which was amazing. They were like, "Hey, I know you're supposed to get a Toyota Camry. Here's a Mercedes."
The rental place.
Yes,
they didn't give us.
No, yeah, we didn't get comped one. But I was very grateful for that. So we're sitting in this car, and Alan and I are talking, and I'm like, I don't know where I belong in this world, and I'm crying, and I've learned so much this weekend. I feel like I'm more next level than I ever realized, and I feel like all the work that we've been doing is paying off. And I was like, I'm going to sit in the car for a minute. I'm going to call Taryn. I call Taryn. I'm crying. She said, are these good tears or bad tears? And I said, they're amazing tears. I feel like I'm further along than I ever gave myself credit for. I feel like all the work Alan and I are doing together and separately is really starting to pay off. Those growing pains that I had along the way, like every week, every day, every month, every podcast episode, every coaching call, whatever it was, have paid off to me having this positive growing pain of, look, you've actually really leveled up way more than you realize. And Tara and I had this amazing conversation. Alan and I had another great conversation. We went to the gym, and now I'm, a week and a half later with a new perspective on things. And just understand the takeaway from this point. Your life can look completely different in 5 years if you just commit to your growth now. You'll look back and say, wow, I've come so far, right? You'll look back and say, I don't even remember the version of me that I used to be. You'll look back and your everyday normal will be what your dream was 5 years ago. But that's only if you commit to the growth, you show up every day, and you deal with the growing pains of change. No matter what, if you decide nothing, things will change, probably for the worse. Like, you're going to end up somewhere in the next 5 years. You should at least decide and then go for it.
We're coming up on it here, but I do want to say this. Everyone contemplate for a second, like, what happens, let's say you buy a $500,000 home. What happens to that home if you just let it be? You don't repair it, you don't landscape, you just let it sit. Over the years, it starts to degrade. The roof starts to leak. It starts to get overgrown. It gets worse. It depreciates. It becomes less valuable. Let's say you didn't touch it for 5 years and it just completely went to shit. Are you going to be able to sell it for $500,000? Probably not, because the foundation's going to be leaking. The roof's going to be leaking. Human beings, nothing in this world gets better by default. Things decay over time. They don't get better over time. I remember when I was in high school, every freaking adult would say these are the best years of your life. Not true. It's never been true. It's not even close to true, as a matter of fact. High school, for me, kind of sucked, to be completely honest. But the rest of my life, it's only ever gotten better. But the only reason is because I've put in the effort to get better. Now, it's been highs, lows, ebbs, and flows. It's been tough, for sure. But life's only gotten better over time, but that's because I've been focused on growth. Even before I knew I was focused on growth, even when I was on autopilot, I was still aiming pretty high. Luckily, my mom taught me that from a young age. But just remember, growth does not happen by default. John Maxwell, we're reading a book called The 15 Invaluable Laws of Growth in the Next Level Book Club every Saturday.
Shout out to Book Club. Still not invited. My invitation must have got lost in the mail.
It got lost in the mail.
Thought
For
so.
sure. He says this. People think wisdom comes with age. He says, no, sometimes age comes alone. What I'm telling you is growth does not come with age. growth is not automatic. Growth is climbing, not coasting. And so if you want to grow, it's going to be painful. Climbing a mountain is hard. It's painful, challenging, just like growth, but it's going to be worth it. And remember, the hardest climbs lead to the best views.
Was that, I think that was a Miley Cyrus song.
I don't know.
No, I'm just kidding. I enjoyed this one. I think this was a heart-driven, but no BS. I like the new setup.
Yeah,
I
it's
feel
good.
like it's a little bit of a different vibe. I'm slightly angry we didn't have music going in. Amy, we have some questions?